In the dead of night, U.S. forces snatch a dictator from his bed. Just hours later, the same president sets his sights on a peaceful Arctic island and threatens to start a war with America's closest allies. This isn't a movie trailer.
National security and even international security.
This is January 2026, and what happened in these frantic days may have redrawn the world map. Let's connect the dots. The operation had a name straight from a Pentagon white paper, Absolute Resolve, but its execution was pure Hollywood. At precisely 2 a.m. local time, a coordinated wave of 150 U.S. fighter jets and stealth bombers launched a campaign of defense suppression. Their mission? Blind and deafen the Venezuelan military, carving an invisible highway through the sky. Air defenses went dark. Communications were jammed. In the resulting silence, the real spearhead arrived. This was Delta Force. Their intelligence was so precise, they knew which room he was in. They found Nicolas Maduro not in a presidential palace, but in a heavily guarded safe house, and not in uniform, but in a sweatsuit, a humiliating snapshot of a ruler caught utterly off guard. The capture was clean. No U.S. casualties. He was bundled onto a V-22 Osprey and vanished into the night, bound for a courtroom on U.S. soil. By sunrise, President Trump's post on Truth Social wasn't just a victory lap, it was a declaration of a new, unchallengeable power. But in the White House, that success created a dangerous cocktail: absolute confidence and a belief that no one could say no. And that's when the pivot happened. While the world was still digesting the Caracas raid, the focus shifted thousands of miles north.
Why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, and it will take over Greenland.
For Trump, this wasn't new. It was an old obsession. Back in 2019, he'd floated the idea of buying it. But this time, this was no real estate negotiation. This was an ultimatum.
I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
The public rationale was twofold. First, rare earth minerals, the essential ingredients for everything from iPhones to F-35 engines, currently dominated by China. Second, Arctic dominance. As the ice melts, new sea lanes and military choke points are opening up, with Russia and China making big moves.
We're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
Controlling Greenland meant controlling the future. But the private message was sheer power politics. The threat was economic war, hand over sovereignty, or Denmark and its European allies would face crushing 25% tariffs. It was a shockwave meant to fracture the Atlantic Alliance. The response wasn't just swift, it was historic. Denmark, a NATO founder, a steadfast ally for over 70 years, looked at the United States and saw an aggressor. And they played the ultimate card, NATO Article 5. For the first time in history, the Collective Defense Clause was invoked against a member state. The irony was profound. An alliance created to deter Soviet expansion was now mobilizing to deter American expansion. Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Fredrik Nielsen, stood with a quiet, steely resolve and told the world's most powerful man, "We are not for sale."
Greenland er ikke til salg.
The stage was set for an unthinkable conflict. Trump doubled down. The rhetoric escalated from demanding to furious. Truth Social rants tied Greenland to his unawarded Nobel Prize. He demanded NATO expel Denmark, a move with no legal precedent. Behind closed doors, he pressed the Pentagon for invasion plans. But this is where the system began to buckle. Sources report the Joint Chiefs quietly resisted, presenting stark assessments of the catastrophic costs. In Congress, a rare bipartisan front emerged, threatening to block funding and authority. And at home, the numbers were clear. 73% of the American public opposed a military invasion. From the cobblestone streets of Copenhagen to the frozen shores of Nuuk, a single chant echoed in multiple languages: "Hands off Greenland." So how does
a superpower back down from the brink? It finds an off-ramp. Just days later, at the Global Economic Summit in Davos, came the stunning reversal. Facing unified pressure from allies, the markets, his own cabinet, and the polls, Trump stood beside NATO's leadership and announced a new strategic framework. The substance, however, was in the details. The U.S. would get expanded access to military bases in Greenland. American companies would get preferential rights to develop those critical rare earth minerals. In return, the tariff threats vanished, the force posture was dialed back, and crucially, sovereignty did not change. Denmark and Greenland calmly presented it as a simple reaffirmation of existing treaties. For the White House, it was a victory speech. For the rest of the world, it was a masterclass in diplomatic face-saving, a way to step back from the cliff edge without ever admitting you were about to jump. So where does this dizzying sequence leave us? A dictator in a cell, a precedent set for unilateral intervention. Act 2, a military alliance strained to its limits, but one that ultimately held firm against its own leader. And a frozen, mineral-rich Arctic that is now the world's most tense geopolitical chessboard. This two-act drama reveals a new, volatile playbook. In 2026, are the old rules of alliance and sovereignty still written in ink, or are they just written in pencil? Was this a case of strategic genius, applying maximum pressure to gain real concessions, or was it a near-catastrophic blunder, narrowly avoided by the brakes of the system? You tell me. The debate is everything. Drop your take in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The next chapter is coming, and it's coming faster than you think.